Alright guys, so last class we solved quadratic equations. Now we're going to use quadratic equations to solve word problems. There's only two of these, and then your homework's going to be the last Hawks assignment before we take the Hawks test. So I'm going to send out a review for the Hawks test. Make sure you complete the review because it'll help you take the Hawks assignment. You do not want to take it more than once, so please study. That's the big thing with that. With that being said, we're going to talk about modeling with quadratic equations. Like I said, your homework's going to be 1.7 Hawks. It's the last one before we take the first big test. So typical solving of word problems, it hasn't really changed. We read the problem, write down what is known, define the variable, write an equation, and model the problem, and then solve the equation. All right, so this one says a rectangular auditorium seats 1,750 people. The number of seats in each row exceeds the number of rows by 15. Exceeds means I'm going to have more than, right? So find the number of seats in each row. So the easiest way to solve this, right, we're talking about quadratic equations, so we're going to model with a quadratic equation. So x is going to be our rows. Well, in order to find the number of seats, I can take the rows times the number of seats in each row. All right, so your x is your rows, but if I add 15 to x, that's going to be my seats. And I want it to equal 1,750 people. So now go ahead and distribute. You would get x squared plus 15x equals 1,750. The easiest way to solve this is to move everything to one side and set it equal to 0, just like whenever we solved a quadratic equation before. Now there's two ways to do it. You can use the quadratic equation, or you can factor. Listing the factors of 1,750 is quite hard because it's some big numbers, but just for the sake of this, I know it's going to be a positive 50 and a negative 35. So again, it's kind of multiplied to give me 1,750, negative 1,750, and added 15x, and those are the two numbers that do that. I looked that up before we did this, but I know that takes a while to do that, so you can use the quadratic equation because it never fails. All right, so then I would solve them. I would get x equals negative 50 or x equals 35. Well, if you think about it, we're not going to use the negative number, so that doesn't make sense. So our answer is going to be 35, but that's for the rows. I want to know how many seats are in each row. So I got to take 35 plus 15 to give me 50 seats in each row. All right. The other problem that you're going to see that's quadratic equation related, it says how long would it take for the ball to drop from the top of a 400-foot building to hit the ground? We have a gravity formula. Height equals negative 1/2 gravity times square, or t squared times squared, plus velocity initially squared, or not squared, velocity initial times time, plus height initial. Right? So the height, right, from the top of a 400-foot building to the ground, we're going to use negative 400 as our height. Because if you think about it, you're going to drop it, okay, it's going to go down 400 feet. So we're saying the top of the building is 0, and the ball is going to end up down here. So that's why it's a negative 400. So we're at the top, and we're talking about where's it going to end up at the bottom. All right, so then we're going to use negative 1/2. Gravity, it's going to be that 32 feet squared that they give you here. Times, we don't know what time is, so time squared. Plus our velocity initial. If you think about it, you're dropping a ball, your initial velocity is going to be 0 because you haven't dropped it yet. And we just still don't know time. And our initial height is going to be 0 because we start at the top, which is our 0 point, and we go down 400. That's why we use negative 400. So if you multiply all that out, you get this, negative 16 t squared. And that's all that's left because 0 times time is 0 plus 0. So now I'm going to divide by negative 16. You get 25 equals t squared. Well, now we know how to solve this. We just square root both sides. I know it's going to be plus or minus 5 equals my time. Well, you're not going to use a negative time, so your answer is going to be 5 seconds. And those are the two types of quadratic equations you'll see, or quadratic problems with word problems that you'll see. Again, your homework assignment is 1.7 Hawks. It's the last one, so if you don't have any of the other ones done, anything from 1.1 to 1.8, you need to get it done in order to take the test. If they're not done, you can't take the test. If you need help with one, please let me know, and we can set up a tutoring session to get it completed. All right, so have a good day, guys. Make sure you're reaching out for help.